Chapter 1. A Glimpse Through Fractured Time. It started with a flicker, faint and almost imperceptible, like the flutter of a moth's wings caught in the corner of my eye. At first, I thought it was exhaustion playing tricks. After all, late nights in the lab tended to dissolve the boundaries between imagination and reality. But when the flicker returned, sharper and more deliberate, it demanded my attention. I hadn't meant to create it, you know. The device. It wasn't even the focus of my experiments. It was an accident, a byproduct of a failed attempt to measure the resonance of quantum particles. A metal contraption, half cobbled together with scrap components, blinked to life on my workbench. The first time I peered into it, what I saw nearly stopped my heart. My family's home, a sturdy brick house, the heart of my childhood, consumed in roaring flames. That vision lingered long after I shut the machine down. It felt real, too real, as though I'd witnessed a memory rather than a premonition. My hands trembled as I scribbled notes, trying to make sense of the unexplainable. Was it just a hallucination brought on by sleep deprivation? A malfunction of the device? Or something else entirely? For days, I avoided testing it again. Cowardice, maybe. But curiosity is a cruel thing. It gnaws at the edges of resolve until you can no longer ignore its bite. When I turned the device back on, a new vision emerged, just as vivid as the first. The fire hadn't started yet, but my younger brother, his face pale with fear, stood in the front yard, yelling for help. The device shut itself off before I could see more. The implications were clear. This wasn't a fixed outcome. The future wasn't set in stone. It could be changed. The realization hit me like a blow to the chest. If I could prevent the fire, I could save them. Or so I thought. But the flickers grew worse after that. Each time I turned on the device, it revealed new futures, fractured, incomplete, and often contradictory. In one glimpse, I was there, pulling my brother out of the flames. In another, the house was untouched, but something worse loomed in the background. A gray, shapeless void swallowing the world I knew. I closed my journal that night, my head spinning with possibilities and dread. My mind raced with questions. If I could stop one disaster, would I create another? Was there truly a way to thread the needle, to carve a path where everyone made it out unscathed? The device sat on the bench, humming softly in the darkness. I watched it from across the room, its flickering light casting long shadows on the walls. Little did I know, that tiny machine would become the greatest burden I'd ever carry. What if the path forward lay not in choices, but in the echoes of ones I'd already made? I stood abruptly, drawing in a deep breath. The device hummed steadily, its light reflecting in my wide eyes. I had one last option, one final trial. I dialed my own number, hoping I hadn't reached that particular future yet. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a familiar voice answered. "Hello." I took a step back, heart pounding. This was my chance. "Hi, do you remember me?" I asked tentatively. "Do I know you?" The voice sounded distant. The screen flickered, displaying a blurry image of myself standing in front of the house. "It's me. We grew up together." I pressed on, hoping to jog his memory. The voice on the other end remained unchanged. "I'm sorry. I don't understand," he said politely. But there was a note of impatience in his tone. My blood ran cold. This wasn't my brother. This was the alternate version of me who never left town. I swallowed hard, fear constricting my throat. Why didn't he recognize me? Hadn't we just spoken yesterday in our shared timeline? Was this my punishment? To be trapped in a reality where I was a stranger to my own family? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. But as I stared at the machine, the pieces began to click into place. My brother didn't recognize me because in this timeline, I hadn't saved him. I'd failed somehow. But why? What had I missed? I looked at the screen again. The image of me standing in front of the house was clearer now. I squinted, trying to focus on the details. Then I saw it. Something was different. The house looked the same, but there was a distinct absence. The swing set was gone. My brother was supposed to be in the backyard. Hadn't I warned him about the fire? Of course I had. I remembered showing him the device, explaining the visions. He'd been skeptical, but intrigued enough to listen. I'd convinced him that the first fire was preventable, that the second could be avoided altogether. But after that, our conversations had drifted to other topics. School, friends, girls. Had I gotten complacent? Did I assume he'd take care of things when the time came? Or did I truly believe I could shield him from every danger? Shame flooded me, hot and suffocating. But I couldn't dwell on it. I had to fix this. Somehow I coaxed my brother into action. I pushed him to prepare, train, study the layout of the house until he could navigate it blindfolded. I drilled him on evacuation routes, escape ladders, fire extinguishers. And then I added a layer of redundancy, a backup plan for the backup plan. Then I still wasn't satisfied. I'd walk around the house with him, checking every window, every door, every potential hiding spot. Finally, on the day of the fire, he would understand exactly what to do. I knew it was overkill, but I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. Not after all we'd been through. Yet the vision before me told a different story. My brother was scared. His movements were frantic. He was making a run for it, desperately searching for a way out. The only problem was there wasn't one. He'd chosen the wrong door. I watched helplessly as the flames spread, reaching for him like grasping claws. Then the world went black. I gasped, scrambling to steady myself. No, I had to stop it. I had to tell him which door to open. I fumbled for the phone, my hands shaking. But before I could dial, another vision filled the screen. This time I saw my brother running again, but he was older. His face was etched with weariness, his steps heavy with defeat. Beside him, a woman cradled a small child. They were safe. The house was gone. Hope flared within me, fragile yet tenacious. I dialed my brother's number. "Hey, bud," I said, my voice raspy with disuse. "Just checking in. You okay?" He answered, "Yeah, everything's fine. You?" "Me too. Listen, I need you to come see me. It's important," I said, my heart pounding. Would he ask questions? Would he comply? My fate, my family's fate, hung in the balance. "Sure, where are you?" I gave him the address of my home, the one that burned, the one that didn't, my brother's house. It didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was that he was coming. He was coming to me. The flickering images from the time machine continued to haunt me even after I turned it off. Sleep offered little escape, only to fill my dreams with fragmented visions of altered timelines. When I woke, I'd find myself gasping, heart pounding, trying to piece together the dreams that felt more real than my waking life. In the daylight hours, I grappled with the sheer volume of choices I'd made. I scoured through my journal, a chaotic mess of scribbled notes and half-erased timelines. Each entry was a stark reminder of the consequences I'd faced for every decision. Missed appointment here, burst pipe there. Choosing coffee over tea in this timeline resulted in a future where a complete stranger wept in the rain. Who was she? Why did her pain resonate so deeply within me? As days blurred into nights, the initial thrill of possibility gave way to something heavier, a suffocating dread. The machine showed me just how fragile our lives are, how easily they can unravel. But it also revealed the strength of even the smallest choices. Now, the very things I once took for granted, a knock at the door, a phone call, the rustle of leaves outside my window, seemed charged with significance. Was every conversation a potential catalyst for disaster? Every interaction pushing me further away from the life I wanted to protect? I found myself paralyzed by the fear of setting off another chain reaction, another ripple that would send my life crashing down. Simple tasks like grocery shopping became daunting, the choices overwhelming. Should I take this route or that? Should I speak up or stay silent? Would this person I meet be the one who alters everything? The burden of responsibility was a heavy cloak I never asked to wear. I retreated further into myself, seeking solace in the past. I pulled out old photo albums, each image a precious relic of happier times. Seeing my parents smiling back at me, seeing my brother and me on a bike, felt like a lifeline to a simpler time. But the more I clung to those memories, the more I feared losing them too. One evening, as I sat surrounded by these fragments of the past, a single question echoed in the silence. Can I save everyone? I knew the answer was no. My powers weren't limitless. But in that moment of despair, I realized I didn't want to save everyone. I wanted to save myself. I was tired of being the architect of multiple realities, tired of shouldering the weight of infinite possibilities. I missed the carefree girl I once was, the one who walked through life with wonder and excitement, the one who laughed easily, who embraced challenges, who dreamed big dreams without the burden of their consequences weighing her down. With newfound resolve, I turned to my journal, ready to make a change. For the first time since my powers emerged, I wrote without hesitation. I recorded my daily life, not as an endless series of cause and effect, but as a story. My story. Yes, there were still ripples, moments when the fabric of reality threatened to tear, a near accident here, a heated argument there. But instead of trying to erase them, I decided to embrace them, to navigate them, to learn from them. Life was a tapestry, not a static picture. It was beautiful precisely because of its constant state of becoming. The machine still flickered in the corner, a silent observer of my journey. But now I approached it differently. Instead of seeing endless repetitions, I saw variations, different threads in the vast tapestry of existence. I began to understand that my purpose wasn't to control all outcomes, but to live authentically, to embrace the chaos and beauty of life, to find joy in the small moments, to connect with others, to love, to laugh, to dream. Because in doing so, I was creating my own story, my own unique path through the grand design. It wasn't always easy. There were times when the fear almost overwhelmed me, when the past seemed too painful to revisit, when the future looked too unstable to embrace. But with each passing day, I felt the weight lifting, not because I'd stopped caring about the world, but because I'd started caring for myself. In the quiet moments, when the world was still and I could hear the echoes of my own thoughts, I whispered a new mantra. This is my story, and I meant it. The silence in the basement was thick, broken only by the ominous hum of the machine and the frantic thump of my heart. Its rhythmic flicker had become a second heartbeat, ever present and unrelenting. I was a shell of who I'd been. My thoughts splintered into 1,000 possible futures, each one demanding answers I couldn't give. I'd tried everything, every variable, every minute adjustment, every plea to the unfeeling screen of that cursed device. And still, no matter the path I chose, the fire loomed. It was during one of those endless nights, seated in the pale glow of the machine, that the realization hit me. It wasn't gentle or gradual. It crashed over me like a tidal wave, undeniable in its clarity. The fire wasn't the true cost. It was merely the symptom. The machine had been showing me all along that to save the house, I would have to give up something far greater. At first, I fought the thought. My mind rebelled against the very idea that the only way forward would involve sacrifice. There had to be another way, an option I hadn't seen yet. But the more I tested, the more the machine confirmed what I feared. A constant thread ran through the glimpses of futures where the house stood intact, where my family survived unscathed. I wasn't there. It wasn't always literal. I didn't always vanish from the picture. In some futures I was alive but changed beyond recognition. A recluse, a shadow, unanchored from the people and dreams that had once defined me. In others, I wasn't merely absent. I had sacrificed something crucial: my career, my connections, even my brother's trust. And the worst part? Each loss felt like a piece of myself being torn away, leaving behind a void I wasn't sure I could fill. The machine hummed quietly in the corner, as if mocking me with its simplicity. A mechanism of wires and circuits, capable of unraveling my very soul. I buried my head in my hands, my breaths shallow and ragged. How had I let it come to this? I thought about my family, their laughter, their arguments, the warmth of a home that had once been a sanctuary. Could I truly let it all burn because I wasn't brave enough to pay the price? And if I did choose to sacrifice, who would I become on the other side of it? Was it worth saving the house if, in doing so, I lost everything that made me who I was? The weight of the decision crushed me, but there was no running from it. I felt time slipping through my fingers, the consequences of my inaction closing in. Each glimpse of the fire seemed closer, more vivid, as if the universe itself was demanding an answer. Then the machine flickered again. It wasn't the future of my house or my town it showed me next, but a fleeting vision of my brother, He stood in the yard, shouting my name, his face etched with desperation. For the first time, the answer became clear. The fire wasn't the only thing I had to stop. It was me. Tears streamed down my face as I reached for the machine one last time. The realization gutted me, but I couldn't let them suffer. Whatever it took, whatever the cost, I would pay it. I just hoped I could live with the person I became on the other side. With trembling hands, I initiated the final sequence, the fate of my brother and my family resting on the choices I made in those final moments. I had toiled in the fires of Mount Doom and walked through the gates of Mordor. I had scaled the highest peaks in the Dragon's Teeth Mountains and swam the coldest depths of the Sea of Stars. I'd stared into the abyss of the nothing and emerged with a single white feather to remember it by. I'd battled horrors that would make a grown man's blood run cold and walked away unscathed. But nothing prepared me for this moment of quiet desperation in the basement of my own home, the air thick with the smell of dust and regret. And as the machine whirred into action, spewing out visions of the past, I knew one thing for certain. The greatest battles aren't fought with swords and shields, but with the choices we make when all the world is silent. Except now, somehow the silence was worse. Because what good was saving my house if in doing so I became the monster that haunted it? The machine fell silent as I flipped the final switch. The hum that had haunted me for weeks was gone, replaced by a suffocating stillness. And yet, in that moment, all I felt was relief. I had made my choice. There was no going back. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the darkened screen. The weight of what I'd done settled over me like a heavy cloak. The future I'd glimpsed, the one I'd fought so hard to shape, remained a mystery. I had no way of knowing if I'd succeeded. The machine was silent now, its secrets locked away, and for the first time, I was left with nothing but my own thoughts. The fire wouldn't come. That much I was certain of. The house would stand, my family would go on, and life would continue as it always had. But the cost. Oh, the cost. It was a thread that pulled at me with every breath, unraveling pieces of who I'd been. There were futures where I had walked away. Futures where I had let the fire burn because I couldn't bear to face the consequences of change. But that wasn't the path I'd chosen. I had sacrificed a part of myself. Something intangible, yet irreplaceable. Was it my sense of control? My identity? My faith that life could ever truly be predictable? I didn't know. All I knew was that I was no longer the person I had been when this began. I rose from the chair, feeling the ache of exhaustion in every muscle. The lab was bathed in the soft light of dawn, and for the first time, I noticed the way the sun filtered through the blinds, the faint scent of coffee left in a forgotten mug. These were the moments I had neglected in my obsession with the machine. These were the moments I had almost lost. Perhaps that was the lesson all along. That control is an illusion, and the search for perfection is a trap. I had spent so much time chasing futures I could never fully grasp, only to realize that the present was slipping through my fingers. And now, with the machine silent and the path ahead uncertain, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not peace, exactly, but acceptance. There were paths I would never walk, lives I would never live, and choices I would never undo. I carried the weight of those unchosen futures with me, but I also carried the hope that they had led me to this moment, a moment where I could finally let go. I stepped out of the lab, the morning air cool against my skin. The world was quiet, still waking, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was waking with it.